you have to be sharp to do stand-up comedy. You don't have to be aggressive, but you have to be sharp.
I found myself don't really take a lot of things seriously, including myself. So discrimination, casual racism, it's a little bit big in my content creation because I did experience some of that.
Do you feel frustrated when people still ask you where you're from?
I get asked this every day of my life.
Can I ask you a second question?
Yeah, please go for it.
So how do you form your answers? Have your answers changed over time?
One time this guy said, "Oh, so where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm actually from Norway." He goes, "Oh, yeah. What's the currency in Norway?" And I was like, "Norwegian dollar."
Like, you're so brave to start a new life here in a new country. Yes, I agree with that. But at the same time, I'm just following what I feel comfortable. And I'm following what my heart wants, right? So, yeah, what about adding a little bit of humor?
Hey everyone, it's the Here Now podcast with me, Kadambari, and I'm back with the second part to our Accidental Comics series. In the first episode, I spoke to Mexico-born Ed Rivera. This week, I'm with more folks with jokes, Summer Xia and Annie Guo. They're both from China and now call Auckland home. Here's Annie.
For me, I guess it just feels less burden to do stand-up comedy here because nobody cares who I am. And nobody knows who I am. Yes, I have friends, but they are like the friends that I choose versus back in my hometown. They are like my parents' friends who if they come to my gig and if I say something, they might be like, "Oh, look at your daughter." Like there's less 面子, which means like the face here, for me at least. It's kind of funny. I still publish my English stand-up gigs onto my Chinese social media, but with just English. I don't do translation, like transcript of translation on my videos. So my mom watches it, even if she knows that I'm roasting her in the video. She's still like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" I'm like, all the good things.
I've heard that we have some neurodiverse people here. And then ADHD people are like, "Oh, what was the question?" Turns out I do have ADHD. My mom was the first person I shared about this news, and then my mom refused to believe it. And she was like, "You're perfectly normal."
When you do comedy in two different languages, often there's things that sort of get lost in translation, right? If you were to transcribe exactly what you were saying, say in Mandarin into English or English into Mandarin, I'm sure a bit of the humor gets sort of diluted, right?
I think the foundation of the base of the joke, like I guess the mechanisms of the jokes are the same. They are universal. I think humor is universal. Like what is funny is universal. It's just the way the forming your jokes are very different.
Yeah, actually, I think Annie and I are similar in terms of the comedy journey. We started with English stand-up comedy. That was because personally I watch a lot of stand-up comedy in English to start with. Then when I think about I want to say something funny, I think in English. Because my work and my family environment here in New Zealand is all in English. So it's just natural to write and to express in English. But later on, we had this bilingual stand-up comedy club called Yo Show started, and we are asked to MC and sometimes to tell jokes in Chinese. That was a huge challenge for me. Yeah, that just doesn't land, like the structure of punchline of a joke and also the expectation from the audience, because it's a different crowd. It's a Chinese community here. So their expectation and how they're comfortable about a certain type of jokes is very different. You pretty much have to start from scratch instead of just, hey, I have this one written, let's just translate it. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think humor is universal, but what is funny? Like, what are the jokes are very different.
What you call the vernacular sense of humor, right?
Yeah.
Let's take it back to where it all began for you. I mean, I know you, Summer, through one event that I was involved in very closely, and I know you through the diplomatic circles to a degree.
Yes.
Right? So how did comedy happen?
So before I moved to Auckland to work, my previous job was in marketing and sales. So it's nothing really about comedy. However, you have this type of personality to be in the marketing team. Like everybody just want to have a laugh, right? So that was a great team culture. And I think in my family, my dad always jokes around. Like growing up, just looking at him, giving dad jokes in Chinese, right? Yeah, but so I think I love to make people laugh. People around me, my friends, I've been always knowing the funny one in life. So watching stand-up comedy, and I think the moment is really COVID, the lockdown.
Isn't it ironic, though? This is a common story across so many stand-up comics I've
You just
heard.
want to change your life, and just after the first lockdown, you just want to do something you've never done but always been thinking about. So that was my moment of breaking this. Like, hey, there's the open mic. It's been locked down. Now why not just try something new? There's nothing to lose. And that was it. Yeah.
For me, 7 or 8 years ago, I watched a video of Ali Wong on a super not legit website that probably not paying any of the copyright, the parasites. And then I watched quite a long video of her stand up. I was like, oh my God, she's like great. I just had so much fun watching it, but I didn't dive further into stand up. And then I think it was after COVID, very similar story. I think it was 2023, probably. I did a work presentation, and I remember myself shaking so hard during the presentation. I was like, okay, I'm 30. I cannot be so scared of public speaking anymore. So I needed to practice public speaking. So I had 2 ways of practicing. So I could either do stand up, or I could do a Toastmaster. And I wanted to do Toastmaster because it just sounds easier, right? So I checked all the Toastmaster around my work, which is convenient to get to. And then the nearest Toastmaster on their website page, there's something like, you gotta give us your CV and we will review it. We will arrange a panel interview. I was like, screw you. I'm doing stand-up. And then the weekend, I was having hot pot with my friends. And then I was just I had some beer. I was pretty drunk. I was like, you know what? I'm doing stand-up this year. And they were like, you know what? I have a friend is organizing stand-up comedy. You should go on next week. So I was signed up for that. And the journey started.
Now, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Summer toku ingoa, no China aho. What? It's not a joke. It's just showing off. I know someone back there goes, bloody hell! Those bloody Chinese first bought our houses. Now stealing our language. Well, it's not stealing if you're not using it anyway, right?
Is it a common choice for women in China to go, okay, we're going to take to the stage and do stand-up comedy?
Okay. I think that's a good question, because when we touch the topics of immigrant and being a female, it touches intersectionality, right? And talking about specifically about stand-up comedy in China, I think the whole industry is just starting in this recent 5-6 years, or the recent one decade. Less than 10 years. So, of course, I think in any industry, you see more male comedians first. Yeah, male acts, male performers. But in recent years, with the feminism starting to take a lot of attention, have a lot of attention in China as well, culturally and socially, we can see more and more female comedians coming up in China. But having said that, the past 10 years, 15 years, I was not in China, so it's really not in sync with how the trajectory in China, in the developing. But I think remotely, I feel also happy and motivated by that. And also in New Zealand, I just feel the vibe of the industry is pretty encouraging.
I guess it's more difficult just to thinking of going on the stage and opening up and say something. You don't have the confidence, but also you've been always told to suppress your feelings, and you have to be sharp to do stand-up comedy. You don't have to be aggressive, but you have to be sharp. You have to point out something that people normally don't notice things. And then being a female, I guess it's just harder because you will feel the attention on you, and the potentially, I guess, you're scared of being judged.
So as people who've emigrated from China into New Zealand, do you find that, there's this whole idea of making jokes about one's immigrant status or, immigrant experience? I mean, does it ever get exhausting, or do you just feel like it's this an endless supply of content, that experience? I mean, when does it cease becoming a supply of content?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I say that a lot, but this is really a good question. It's sharp. I like it. I question myself all the time. Like, do I use immigrant topic or theme all the time in my jokes? Because I have so many other identities. I'm a female. I am working a corporate. I have a lot to say about my partner, mostly negative. But like, I have to be very honest. I think it's choice of both sides, because being an immigrant, this is part of my biggest identity. I see things that is different from my original culture or my own ethnicity. Like, I have a lot of feelings. For example, I see some news, I view it, even like political news, I view it in an immigrant perspective. There's something of me hard for me to avoid. But also, I'll be very honest, I think it's also on the other side, it's a choice from the market as well, because if you are going on the stage, the majority of the audience are like also immigrants, or majority of the audience, even they are local Kiwis. Their understanding of you when you are on the stage is you are an immigrant, and you have to address that in a way. I feel like the pressure of that, if I just go on the stage, start randomly talking about like being 30, a female, like some like I froze my egg, I could talk about it, but like it's just there are more, I guess, distance with the audience from my immediate immigrant image. So I think it goes both ways. There's some sort of pressure I do feel, but I guess biggest reason is still like it's one of my most important identity.
Yeah, I think that question actually is with probably every comedian, not specifically on being immigrant and using immigrant or female lens. Everybody will have their own unique lens. And at the same time, you will find your category or your group, and you question yourself, do I apply this lens too much? Can I be a very unique self? But I asked that question to myself too in the beginning, right? It's like, oh, I'm talking about being Chinese, being female again. But then I asked myself, what else can I be? Do I talk about being I don't know, South Waikato white Kiwi dude? No, it's not me, right? And I think I lived up 30 plus years, and this immigrant experience is probably 1/3 or more than 1/3 of my life experience. So later on, when I questioned myself probably more than 100 times, I decided to just embrace it. You embrace it, you exhaust the material, and you make yourself more familiar with your audience, and you have different format, different lengths of performance. Eventually, you will move on to other part of your life to share with the audience. So that's how I see it, but it's very similar to Annie's point.
And there's that eternal question we all face. Where are you from? And how does that play out in the lives of stand-up comics like Annie and Summer?
I think people at different stage, or when they came to New Zealand at different age, they feel about this question very differently in the way, because I grew up in China. I went to uni and then I worked a couple years in China. So I was already a mature adult when I came to New Zealand. So I was still deeply, in my heart, identified as Chinese. And then, but for people like they came here when they were very young or they were born here, I think it's just more complicated, and it's harder for them to accept that people in this country still, the default reaction when seeing them is, are you an immigrant? So it's every immigrant responds to this question very differently, I reckon.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah, like both yourselves. I mean, I came here at the age of 25, you know, so really not that long ago. You know?
Yeah.
No,
It's like 2 years ago.
But, you know, yeah, I still deal with the same thing. You're right. I think we all have different responses. And I mean, is it really at its heart some way of coping with a huge change that might have occurred in your life, which is moving from one country to another? Or are you really just trying to, you know, make the most of the situation?
I think for me, when I just started doing stand-up like a couple of years ago, I was trying really hard to just use a framework to form a joke. For example, what is people's stereotype? And then how can I fight back the stereotype by using a joke? But I think the more I do stand-up, I feel like I'm more genuine with my jokes and on my stage. Like, for example, if let's say there are 10 most common scenarios that immigrants face when moving a country, and I only experienced the 3 of them, or I only resonate with 3 of them the most. Like, language barrier is the highest, like my most difficult barrier. And then there was just so many funny things happened. So I resonate with that so much. So I turn all the experiences with that into jokes on the stage because I love talking about it. It's just me. But if, for example, discrimination towards immigrants, I don't talk about it that much, not because I don't recognize it. It's more because I personally haven't felt that much yet. Maybe I'm just too insensitive with it, but I just personally I haven't felt too much discrimination. So that's why I don't talk much about it, because I feel like if I talk, it's not from my heart. It doesn't feel genuine to me myself.
Yeah, maybe you haven't been to Christchurch.
I actually do have a joke about that.
Yeah, just to follow on that, I think in general, I apply funny lens to everything. It's just my personality. I see things funny first, then I think about any serious implication of this particular case or not. So I found myself don't really take a lot of things seriously, including myself. So I tend to just joke about it. But when you ask, did you frame this, move your personal story of being an immigrant, move to another country into this, I don't know, creative outlet, it's unconsciously. But it's like, for example, my show is talking about my journey of coming to New Zealand and how to navigate the daily life here, and also how to navigate reverse culture shock back home, right? So that's just what I feel. If I didn't encounter a certain experience, I would not talk about it because it's not genuine and I don't know how to start to make it funny. But also, discrimination, casual racism, it's a little bit big in my content creation because I did experience some of that. Maybe I didn't take it seriously on the spot, but when the first time I was yelled at, like, turn around, Asian, by a 14-year-old in the car park of a national park. Did I want to cry? Yes. But it's just so shocking to your face, you know. I thought I was strong enough, but at the moment, the emotion just come up, right? But after that, I'm like, now I'm doing stand-up. I'm going to write about it. It's like, thank you, racist.
Next month, Guo and Summer Xia take to the stage at the Comedy Fest in Auckland to share their jokes on navigating life as first-gen Chinese immigrants in New Zealand.
I really appreciate New Zealand Comedy Fest having more diverse in the shows they choose, and I think it's good starting point to include more and more audience.
Yeah, 100%. We, between Annie and I, we always have this joke, right? We have this joke to say to the producers, hey, if you guys cast both of us in the same lineup, you guys are not racists. But it is a joke, but it's kind of true at the same time, right? A lot of time we joke about, hey, we are the diversity high of the lineup. But for the fest to cast us, both shows up about our journey, our personal journey, being a first-generation immigrant coming to New Zealand. From the top level tagline, you say, the blurb looks similar. It's just 2 Chinese ladies talking about them coming to New Zealand and living here. Yes, it is, but at the same time, we're just 2 different persons. We have very different perspectives and different sense of humor. So put us in the same week and to split the season, I think it's amazing. The fact of both of us here talking about our shows and talking about our experience, we see similarities, we see differences. I think it's just a chance and opportunity to show the population of New Zealand itself is getting more diverse every day. And the art and the culture should reflect the population, right? That it's just art reflect life, really.
Guo and Summer Xia chatting about their journey to becoming accidental comics. This is part of a series of conversations, so make sure you follow the podcast on all your favourite podcast platforms. And you can also hear the episodes, see photos and hear more on our website. Today's episode of Accidental Comics was mixed by Ben Pierce, and I'm your producer and host, Kadambari Raghukumar.